What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. The handheld emulation scene has continued to grow every single year, with all kinds of new form factors being introduced. Well, now, one in particular has popped up online, and it seems like it's getting ready for a reveal, this being a dual-screen display that won't cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and we'll take a look at that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about that downgraded PlayStation 5 that was released in Europe, as now we have a look inside of it, and even some details around a new PlayStation 5 Pro that'll be releasing in this similar fashion. And we'll also be talking about, believe it or not, Parasite Eve. Well, kind of. Here, though, something coming out of Tokyo Game Show with a spiritual successor. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, to keep you up to date on all the stuff going on right now in gaming. We're going to start today with Yooka Replaylee. This is coming up on October 9th, not too far out. But we did get some information around how it's going to be running on the Switch 2, and it's pretty disappointing because you can see this. This is over on Nintendo Life. They say, to provide players the best possible looking and seamless version of the game, Yooka Replaylee will be running at a consistent 30 FPS on the Switch 2, both in handheld and docked mode. Due to limited time with the development kits, we're investigating the possibility of implementing a performance mode to follow sometime post-launch. Okay, this is coming from Platonic, who, of course, developers there with that. They post this on social media. And Yooka Replaylee is a game, just ukulele in general, that you would want to play at 60 FPS. And that was the idea of the Switch 2 getting more powerful than the Switch 1, that we would see more and more north, we'll say, of 30 FPS games, all right? So here, hopefully it's something I can figure out with a performance mode, but at launch, it's not really something I'd be able to recommend there at 30 FPS. You have to kind of look elsewhere at other systems that are touching that 60 FPS range. So we'll see if they're able to correct this in the future, as they say, post-launch with an update. But they did specifically call out the fact that, well, we don't really have time with dev kits ahead of launch, so something that we've heard quite a bit now with Nintendo and these dev kits getting out late. Also, with Metal Gear Solid Delta coming out and getting pretty good critical reception, minus some of the performance issues with it, people are now asking, hey, what about that Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 2 that's been talked about? Well, this was during a stream at Tokyo Game Show with the series director for Metal Gear Solid. This we can see over on VGC. This is through a translation saying, it has certainly taken quite a while now. Since we called the first installment Volume 1, it's only natural to expect a second one, and that's what we said years ago. But as we've repeated several times, we are making it. We've been working on it properly while also producing Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. When the time is right, we'd like to share with you all news on not only its progress, but also the direction going forward. At this time, people are thinking 2026, we'll see this Volume 2, which should include Metal Gear Solid 4. That's like the most obvious thing to have in there, and I figure would be like the big banner game for that collection. Maybe with some of the other titles, say from the PSP, that they can throw in there as well. So that, my biggest hope is that they heard the feedback when it came to some of the limited options when it came to performance and resolution and other visual settings for the first volume, and maybe they're able to do a bit more even with Metal Gear Solid 4, as that game, upscaled and with all kinds of stuff on PC through emulation, looks awesome. So here's hoping we hear more about this in 2026 and maybe even have it come out so we can get Metal Gear Solid 4 even away from that PS3, because still to this day, that's the only, we'll say, legitimate place to play it, or at least officially. Oh, and with Forza Horizon 6 revealed last week, we got a bit more information around platforms will be available on day one next year, and this is something that keeps coming up with Microsoft, of course, because they have mixed messaging with some of these releases. Is a PS5 logo there? Is it not? Well, it looks like for Forza Horizon 6, it won't be at launch at least. This over on really the footnotes for the Xbox Wire post. They say Forza Horizon 6 will launch first on Xbox consoles and PC in 2026. With the excitement for this franchise on other platforms, Playground Games and Turn 10 Studios are also working together to bring Forza Horizon 6 to PlayStation 5 post-launch. So, not really sure how long. It could be months. It really depends on when it comes out next year on Xbox. I kind of feel like that would be more their holiday September, October release. In that case, it'll probably miss the holiday season for PS5 and release at some point, I'd say in the first half of 2027. But first, we have to get the release date for it to try to line up exactly when that PlayStation 5 launch could follow. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a much anticipated emulation handheld. See, the idea of being able to emulate DS games, but closer to how it's supposed to be played with 2 screens is something that people have been asking for a couple of years now, and we have seen some offerings, but they're also quite expensive. Remember, there was one we looked at as like, hey, that looks really cool, could even fit up to a 3DS style, and then we hear it's $800, $900. Like, well, that was fun while it lasted. Well, what if we could get a handheld that could come out even below the $100 mark? Well, there is one company that really tries to push this more and more and seems to be maybe targeting the DS with this similar strategy. This we can see over on Retro Handhelds, and we have an image here as well as a video. This video seemed to make the rounds on social media and video streaming platforms in China, and then we started to see screenshots surface and even some images of apparently the device itself. And this has been rumored for a bit from Anbernic, I guess an Anbernic RGDS, as is being titled here over on Retro Handhelds. And yes, the idea being kind of a DS Lite style system. And, you know, when I saw this, the red top immediately sparked nostalgia for me. That's the DS Lite I remember having and playing a lot. It was matte black all the way around except for that top portion that was kind of like this metallic, shiny red almost. And this looks just like that form factor, even kind of down to the hinge itself. And if you look on the front, the 2 screens, and they do appear to be 4:3, so that would line up exactly what you need for the aspect ratio with the DS. It's not like, oh, it's a widescreen at the top, so you're going to cut the sides off anyway. What's the point? No, seems like this is something they would be setting up for specifically DS games. All right, got the D-pad there along with the face buttons. There are 2 analog sticks, and some are looking at this as, is it necessary? Seems almost over-engineered. Well, if it's playing DS games, it would probably also play PS1 games, and yeah, you might have some games where you could use the 2 analog sticks, right? So it's almost, why not? You have kind of the real estate there on the system. You'd still want to see how the D-pad and the face buttons feel if you're just playing DS games with the analog sticks below them, but provided the screens are good enough quality and the system is able to handle some of the more 3D-based DS games, this could be really, really cool. Certainly one that would be very compelling if it hit what is now, right now what I'm seeing going around, the price of $100 or less. Then you're in, okay, impulse buy territory for a massive library of titles. Now, this wouldn't be playing your DS cartridges. You would be, yes, running ROMs off of an SD card. But if you look around, it has like the USB-C charging on the back, very modernized features, and it seems like it would also be running Android. So again, you can open it up to all kinds of flexibility with emulation and stuff there. So we're gonna keep an eye on this one because with this making the rounds on social media platforms again in China, seems like Anbernic could be lining things up to make an announcement maybe here in the next month or so. There are some questions I want to make sure people are aware that this could be AI generated, as there was like a Gemini watermark on one of them. It is hard to say, but the rendering for it and kind of the promotional video going around looks very, very well done to where it almost seems like a waste of time otherwise. So I'm hoping this is going to end up being a thing. It has been rumored, again, for a while that Anbernic was going to attempt this. So here's hoping they get it all figured out. And even I think at $100, if it does play DS games well and it like feels like it's decent enough quality, I think that is an awesome emulation handheld. I'd be buying it day one, and yeah, we check it out here on the channel. So I'll keep an eye on this one and keep you guys updated. Next up, let's talk about that downgraded PlayStation 5 that was released in Europe, and this was the PlayStation 5 that, yes, technically is worse than the 1 terabyte Slim at the same price because it's 825 gigabytes. However, when Austin Evans showed this off in a video yesterday, I noticed something. Wait a minute, this might be even better at some points because as he takes it out of the box, it's an all matte finish all the way around. It's not glossy black, it's a matte finish black. And you know what? I'd much prefer that over the glossy black that we have on the PlayStation 5 now because it just gets scratched up, smudged. Even though some people look at the the matte black as kind of cheaper looking, I actually prefer it. So there, it's immediately has my interest, as I wonder if I could get the shell for that and put it on my current PS5 Slim. However, he did do a full teardown on it after checking out a few other things. The power draw seemed to be the same. It was lighter, this newer 2025 PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 Slim versus the one released a couple of years ago, the 1TB model. So after opening up and investigating it a bit, it does appear that Sony decided to try to save money by, yes, reducing materials again. They've done this before. Specifically, the heatsink was the most noticeable part. Here, the heatsink was also somewhat affected with a reworking, but also even the metal casing that goes around the motherboard and really works to keep it flat and supported, that was also a bit thinner and lighter. And this is all going into Sony's plan of, naturally, trying to lower the cost of the PS5. The problem really we run into is typically when they do that, even with a smaller storage size, they lower the price. Here, the price is the same. It seems like it's just replacing the 1TB Slim, I guess. And yeah, that's not great. It is a worse PS5 then when it comes to the specifications and just the storage size. And I mean, that's where Sony is now. They're trying to keep the price the same, and in order to do that, hey, let's take some storage out. That's the way of them kind of cutting back without, I guess, having to just raise the price on it. And we've seen that enough at this point, so let's try to get more creative. This is, I guess, kind of a way, but the creative aspect to it towards the end of the generation generally works towards let's get the price down to get some of the stragglers, say, from last generation over from the PS4 to the PS5. Now, there is one other system that's now been spotted, this being a PlayStation 5 Pro, and this is over on D-Labs, you can see, where they say Sony is reportedly launching a new version of the PS5 Pro in the European market soon. Identified as CFI 7121, it's available in the Americas, remains uncertain at this time, so we're not even sure if the downgraded PS5 825GB is going to come over here. Seems like right now it's just in Europe, and it seems like the PS5 Pro here would be the same. With that model number, you can, I guess, keep an eye on it to see if it pops up. But it does look like this one will be retaining its 2 terabytes of solid state storage. And what I would assume is happening here, as the price is still the same, right, is that they're going to be doing similar things as they did with the PS5 Slim, where they've worked to re-engineer parts of it to, yes, cut down on costs. That's really what happens towards the end of the generation anyway across the board. There are a lot of silent revisions that take place that you may have never even noticed when you bought a system later on in the generation, but inside things were changed, shifted around, or even just swapped out entirely. Here though, Sony putting in some extra work, at least in the European market. We'll see if these things make their way over again to the US, and we'll see if, I guess, somebody gets their hands on this PS5 Pro, this new model, to tear it down and see what Sony changed in that one. Next up, let's talk about a game that caught the internet by surprise over the weekend coming out of Tokyo Game Show, as it appears to be a spiritual successor to Parasite Eve, which is a franchise that Square Enix kind of left behind. People have been asking, can you do a remake or some sort of newer remaster, something for it? They really haven't moved on it at all. I mean, they could eventually, but they haven't at this point. So, hey, when you sit around and wait too long, yeah, you're gonna see another studio come in and do a very, very inspired version of the game, technically. Well, we can see this with the trailer, and this is from Frontier Hunter Ezra's Wheel of Fortune developer, Ice Citruna. Now, I have not heard of that game. I looked it up, Frontier Hunter, and it appears to be a 2D action RPG. So when I see the game called Parasite Mutant, I mean, you could put 2 and 2 together with Parasite Eve, but it's a science fiction horror RPG set in the distant future. It'll be launching on the PS5 and PC through Steam in 2026. And as soon as I saw it, I mean, everyone else is kind of like, hold on a minute, this looks like Parasite Eve. It has that survival horror element to it, but it is that they have it as active time chains or active time battle kind of there, right? Like more closer aligned to a turn-based RPG style rather than trying to lean heavily into, we gotta have action RPG elements in this because that's what I guess as they figure the younger audience is looking for. No, this seems much more traditional. Now, the active time chains seems to combine, as they say, active time battle systems and 3-segment chain system. So here you'd be timing your actions on each sequence and decide whether they want to save the energy or do a chain release, all right? And then you can basically just blow away your enemies with all that saved up energy. So the art style, you can see it's very heavily like cel shaded HD anime style, which is pretty cool. It even says as a retro filter and CRT filter, again aiming towards that late 90s to 2000s vibe with Parasite Eve. And it has a new game plus that they decided to tell us about now. I like what I'm seeing here. It also doesn't look like it's like a crazy big game, so I don't think this is going to be a full price title even. I think this is going to slot in nicely at that, maybe like that $25 to $30 mark, maybe. Like, we'll see on all of that when we get into next year. What a fun surprise though, coming out of Tokyo Game Show, a spiritual successor to Parasite Eve. Again, something Square has kind of just left behind a bit there. And yeah, you get another studio coming in, realizing there's at least some demand for it, and well, let's try to make a new one out of it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, as it is coming to the Switch 1 and then the Switch 2 through like an enhancement patch. That's happening this week on October 2nd. Well, wouldn't you know it, we're already starting to get shots of the retail box, the inside cover art, the cartridge, and I assume then somebody just has the game early with that. It's a running theme for just about all of the Switch 1's generation. Well, we can see this is posted. This is by Nintendo, who gives us a good look at the inside cover art for it. It looks cool. It does. Some people are looking at some of the renderings of these Marios here on the cover, and they're like, wait, I don't think I've seen this rendering before. And it could be a new one that Nintendo did for this Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 collection, sure. And then we have the cartridge there with the two titles kind of across from each other, that diagonal split. I mean, it looks cool. I would actually be kind of disappointed if there wasn't some sort of inside artwork or something here. I will say though, I started to realize this. Wait, the Switch 2 is like a red see-through case. It doesn't really lean into the idea of you having inside cover art because you just have a red shade to the whole thing. I guess unless you play into that. But this, I will say, it does look good, right? It does play into the idea of an anniversary style release. And the thing here now is, does this mean that the cartridge is out in the wild? Because the question we still have, by the way, with this game, how does it work on the Switch 2? How does it look on the Switch 2? Because we just see a lot of Switch 1 footage, and there's a lot of curiosity around that. We do see that the game itself, the compilation, and then just Mario Galaxy 2 on the eShop are 2 and 3. People are buying them. They're getting ready for its release. Again, I'm interested in Mario Galaxy 2. I already have Mario Galaxy 1 on the 3D All-Stars collection. Don't really need it again, but Mario Galaxy 2 is like top tier, like 3D platforming. So I have to get it. The kids have to see what good games look like when they put down the Fortnite stuff, okay? So that's the plan there, and I am genuinely curious to see how it looks, say, on the Switch 2 with the enhancement patches and that kind of stuff. So we'll see as we get later on in this week, or who knows, maybe we'll find out today because, yeah, maybe the game's just out there and people just randomly post footage. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, is the ROG Xbox Ally handheld an Xbox or a PC? 84% just say it's a PC. Hey, 16% of people there say it's an Xbox. Some were asking, why isn't there an everything is an Xbox option? Well, I thought about that, and at one point I had the option there, but I figured everyone's gonna vote on that because, I mean, that is the real answer. It's a trick question. Everything's an Xbox. Obviously it's an Xbox. I really wanted to see how people were split on that. I do think most people see it as a PC, but there are some out there I see on social media at times say, no, it's definitely an Xbox. It's not going to play GTA 6 when that comes out on the Xbox Series, say, next year, but it's still an Xbox. Well, everything's an Xbox, so I guess they're right. But really, it's running Windows and the full screen experience, and it runs Game Pass on PC, so yeah, technically it's a PC. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Drew, who says, yes, the issue with the game keycards is that we want the full game available offline long after those Nintendo servers go down. If read speed is the problem, I don't understand why they wouldn't let you copy the files onto the system memory from the card. We've been doing that on PlayStation with the Blu-ray discs for years. Seems like an obvious solution to me. Yeah, even like the 360, when that first came out, there was no option to install the disc to a hard drive. You just had to run everything off of the DVD drive, and it was slower than if you could run it off of a hard drive. And eventually, Microsoft pushed an update to where any disk you put in the system, you could just install to the hard drive, and it would do a quick check that you had the disk in the drive, and then you wouldn't have a loud DVD drive anymore, which was nice. It would spin really fast, but also things would just load faster off the hard drive. Eventually, you got to the point where something like GTA 5 came out and had a mandatory install. So towards the end of that generation, even developers went, look, we need the increased read speed. with the hard drive, so you have to install this disk. It just isn't going to work off the drive. I think that is, at this time, the solution that's just out there. Like, there's not much they can do right now. If those game cards that are for the Switch 2 are just too slow, they're just too slow. And I know there are some theories, oh, they're just saying that because they want you to buy the game key card. I mean, these are developers that are talking, and they're not necessarily on the publishing or marketing arm, I guess. They're saying, hey, look, this is just the reality of the situation. That's it. I mean, one's an audio engineer working on Snowdrop with Star Wars Outlaws. They're not out there trying to figure out signage and best way to sell the product there. So I do believe them. And that then falls to Nintendo to figure out a solution. And if the solution is, hey, you buy a cartridge in store and then you can just install the stuff off of it, that's the solution, and that's something they'd have to work through. Hopefully they do have a solution at some point, because the game key cards, I kind of think Nintendo was figuring maybe a little bit of backlash in the beginning. They'll get over it. I don't really see a lot of people getting over it. It's still kind of a sticking point. So unless we get years and years in and people just go, well, that's just the way it is, this is probably something that's going to follow Nintendo for the entire generation unless they figure it out in some way. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear about how scalpers still haven't learned their lesson from what's happened with the Switch 2, where it's well available and they're not making any money off it. Well, now they're going to take their hand at the Xbox, or the ROG Xbox Ally X. And I'm not kidding when I say thousands of dollars are being attempted. I'll leave that in the video right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.